From Swoop, it's Take the Plunge, a podcast about how business owners decided to stop what they were doing and took the plunge to start their own businesses. We take a look at how they came to that decision and what those first crucial steps were in getting their business up and running. My name's Kieran and I'll be your host for this episode. Here's what you can expect on today's episode.
The cucumber one's really interesting because some people, and I'm obviously really biased for this, but some people love it, but then some people hate it so much.
I'm delighted to be joined by Johnny Barnes, founder of the Soho Juice Company. Soho Juice Company is the UK's coolest soft drink and mixer range, which is multi-award winning, preservative-free, vegan certified and low calorie, all whilst being full of flavour and free of fizz. You're very, very welcome. Johnny, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. The sun's shining and thank you very much for having me on.
Perfect day for Soho Juice, you might say. I can definitely testify. Actually, I went on Amazon about a week ago because when we were kind of doing a bit of research and ordered some of the delightful lemon, lime, mint, and cucumber. Got them back to the gaff. Very excited to try them. Got them on the fridge, cooling nicely. Had about one, absolutely delicious. Went away for the night, came back, none left. So I need to restock, but they're absolutely delicious.
Oh no, thank you very much. It's the cucumber one's really interesting because some people, and I'm obviously really biased for this, but some people love it, but then some people hate it so much.
Well, up our house the street, I only got to manage to sample one of them. So you big fans in our home anyway.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny. It's just it's so polarizing, and I think that if you don't like cucumber, it's going to be one of the worst drinks that you've ever had. But if you like cucumber, and we're really lucky, that one won a Great Taste Award and a couple others. And so if you like it, people seem to really, really like it. But then if you don't like cucumber, then oof, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Thankfully, a few more ranges to woo them over with.
Yeah.
So great, Johnny. I suppose just wanted to take you back to the very beginning and kind of understand what you were doing before deciding to set up your own business and kind of why you decided to stop doing that before taking the plunge, so to speak.
Yeah, no, of course. So I actually had a lip care startup company before this, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it was for skiers and snowboarders who wanted petroleum-free lip care when they were skiing or snowboarding or surfing as well. And so I was doing that, and to be honest, and that was in Soho, and it wasn't really working. And maybe there was a way to make it work, but it would have been essentially to do bespoke lip care for corporate clients in a call center setting. And it could have worked like that, but it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. And so
Yeah.
and so I was already in startup kind of world, and I'd done a smaller bits and bobs before that too. But I was working in Soho, and I just really wanted to start a drinks company. And it was one Christmas actually, and I was thinking of some names, and some of them were appalling. Just absolutely.
What was the first one?
Oh, the worst one. Oh God, there's so many of them. But I think for one, maybe Leroy Fitzpatrick's Wheatgrass and Lemon Juice Company is
Wow, that just rolls right off the tongue.
so memorable, isn't it?
It really is. It's amazing for any advertising campaign. Amazing hashtag as well.
Yeah, and it was like, oh God, no, this is appalling. And then once I was just kept on thinking of terrible names, terrible names. And then one Christmas I was just at my mum and dad's house, and I said to my mum, oh, well, I work in Soho, kind of want to start a juice co. Soho Juice Co, that works, right? Yeah, and it was just because I was working in Soho at the time. So then the first thought was, well, that has to be taken. And so had a look on Company's House, and it wasn't. And so I was like, all right, well,
Lovely.
yeah, let's just register it. And then at least we've done that bit, and God knows where we're going with this. But that was the first step for it. After that was to just get it registered as soon as we could.
It's always a nervy moment when you're like, oh, feck, I've got a really good name here. And you're like typing in, and you're like, please, 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 no one has this, please.
No,
I've
completely.
lost a few good ones down through the years.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, we could have, yeah, pretty confident that no one was going to go with Leroy Fitzpatrick's wheatgrass, but with that, it was
Safe as houses, Johnny, safe as houses.
exactly. But with this one, it was, oh, right. So, yeah, so that was actually the very first tentative step of it.
And then I suppose how do you go from, I suppose, producing lipware that doesn't have petroleum in it to producing juice? How does one go from that to that?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and so I was really lucky that I knew some people who might kind of take a chance on a startup project of mine. So I was amazingly fortunate in that situation. But then it was just we knew absolutely nothing. So originally it was I knew two people. I knew I had a friend called Steve and a friend called John, and we actually and so I was kind of speaking to them and look, kind of got this weird idea and no idea what the drinks are going to be, no idea what anything's going to be for this, but like, do you fancy kind of let's just see what happens with stuff. So then Steve at the time, he was working for Trailfinders and he was living in a ramshackle flat in a warehouse somewhere near Tottenham. And so we, to start with, the very first steps was we went to the local Sainsbury's and he had a mate's blender. And we'd literally just like make up different drinks and see if any of them were drinkable or not. And so it was such a low bar. They just had to be drinkable. And then I don't know how he did this, but one of them was actually cucumber, mint, lemon, and lime. And we actually tasted it and we were just like, this actually tastes good. Yeah, just get the mango away, get the pomegranate away. This actually tastes good. And we still had no idea what to do next
Yeah,
with anything, but I had another friend called John. John was in a band called The Basement, and he was at the time just working in sales, and he didn't really like what he was doing. It was for leasing cars for companies. And so then John kind of got on board too, and there was a girl who had really helped me with my lip care branding, and so we had like the initial branding. And then to start with, at the very, very early days, we went to Borough Market. We'd bottled the drinks, but we got the bottles from China. Don't know why.
yeah,
And then so we'd bottle the drinks, we'd try and sell them at the markets. And originally it was just that cucumber, mint, lemon and lime one. And so that's how it all kind of started. But then I think like quite a lot of good ideas really, life gets in the way, people get busy and stuff
yeah.
happens. So it was probably about a year later, to be honest. But like the lip care by that point was well and truly winding up. And John was in town just for a chance wedding. We have quite a lot of mutual friends, and where I was living in Dalston at the time was nearest to where the wedding was. So John was just staying at mine, and then the day after the wedding, we were just having some Bloody Marys, and he was just complaining about his job. I was saying, well, look, I think, but to be honest, the great lip care run is over. If it ever begun, I think, let's be honest here, if it ever begun, then it's over now. And so at that point, then we just went, well, let's really start to do this properly, and well, let's at least
Mm,
see what we can do with this. At that point, we were self-funded, but I was lucky enough to know people to give us a small bit of cash to see if we could prove
yeah,
the concept or not. But we literally knew nothing about how anything worked, and so John was at a bar one night, and someone said to him, and he's normally based in Liverpool. He was in London, but he was based in Liverpool, and someone said to him, well, have you heard of what they're doing at Chester University? And he was like, oh, no, of course I'm not an academic. That's what they're doing at Chester University. And then they had this amazing thing. It was this EU-funded, essentially a soft drinks and food incubator, where if you had an idea, then they'd give you free use of their facilities and free use of and their expertise, and you could actually try and make.
no way.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And this guy just said to John, well, you and Johnny should go and go down and see what it was like. And so it was funny. They showed us round, and it just, to me, like Breaking Bad was on at the time, just looked like something from out.
Very similar, very similar.
Exactly. But it was just these big, like, metallic machines, and neither of us really knew what they did or anything. We were like, oh, this looks pretty good.
Yeah, so how do you get started in that if you don't come from like a scientific background? You go into a mad lab and you're just like, away you go, lads. Is
Well,
that how it goes? Or like, is
well,
there
well,
anyone there to guide you?
yeah, well, they were there to guide us, but it was really funny too because they showed us round and we were like, oh, yeah, well, looks impressive anyway. And then they took us to another room and they said, so, what do you do at Chester University? And I was like, oh, well, to be honest, it seems like a lovely place, but this is the first time I've actually been in Chester. and
So
and
very diplomatic of you.
but yeah, and yeah, but it's a lovely place, lovely part of the world. And then they said to John, "Well, so what about you? What do you do at Chester?" And John was like, "Well, and I kid you not, he 100% said this, and he said it with a straight face, and he was deadly serious. He was like, "Well, my girlfriend's gran lives in Chester." And so at that point we left thinking, right, well, we're never going to be seeing from them again. That's just, yeah, right. Well, great tip off, but we're never going to be speaking to them. And then about 5 days later, I got a letter through saying, delighted to announce that you're eligible.
Unreal.
Yeah, and because I guess from their side they needed companies to go on the scheme, and yeah, and we were just shocked. And so there was a guy called Tobias who was there, and so we did our first run, and Danny, he really helped with operations for the lip care, kind of roped him in a bit by this point as well. And so we did our first run, and so we got these kind of Grolsch style bottles at the time that you had to, and
Flick the top.
oh yeah, and they fucking hurt when you do a few of them.
Yeah, they do. They do.
and
They do.
yeah, and so you'd have to like squeeze them, and then Danny and I would be putting them on, and then this guy Tobias was really helping us with stuff, and who was actually like an expert from Chester. And so we get there, and everyone's just so excited, and because John and I had kind of from about the January, this was in the October, been like, this had kind of been our main focus for stuff, and Danny had come on a bit later in the year, and so everyone's so excited. John would go to Liverpool fruit and veg markets at about 5 o'clock in the morning, try and negotiate prices, but the useless fact of the day is just how volatile the cucumber market was. I kid you not, you'd have about 30 to 40% swings by the day. It was insane. And
You're joking.
no, because it was completely dependent on supply and demand from the bigger ones, and also the weather and the farmers, and just
That is mad. And would you source from a farm, or would you be going out to like big kind of Costco style warehouses to get them?
it was from like the big wholesale fruit and veg markets.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so everyone was so excited, and this was our first time of doing this. So then, with Tobias's help, we put all of the mint which we got, and we put the Israeli mint into stuff. We put the cucumbers into big blenders. It turns out that if you put one kind of cucumber in a blender, it's this amazing green. It's unbelievable. If you put hundreds of cucumbers in a blender, it's this gone off brown colour.
Not great. Not great for selling.
No, it was a disaster, to be honest with you. We had a big wrap, like a green wrap, over drinks, but we only had that because of potential sediment at the bottom. And it's just funny because that's now one of the core like tenets of our design, and just that kind of big, like striking single colour brand block colours. Everyone was so excited, and then you get this drink, but everyone's still quite positive, and we're bottling it up. And then we actually our storage at the time was a safe store in Liverpool, and then so we take it all back there, and kind of Christmas happened, and I went up to see John in January, and he was just like, "We can't sell this. It's just brown." It was 100% right. It's just like, well, we can't sell this. And it was funny. The kindest thing that someone said to us was, "It maybe looked healthy." And so then had to go back to the people who kind of started to invest in us and just go, "Well, look, we still think this will work, but it's just not going to work at all like this." We also had at the time this slightly crazed mixologist man who was a wild lunatic. He had helped us again with just the proportions to begin with. So he did some weird stuff, like there was a shoe company, quite a well-known one, and they asked him to devise the cocktails for it. And so he came back to them and just went, "Well, you consider putting fish heads in every cocktail?" And he was
Right, a real maverick.
Yeah, and they were just like, "Well, no, of course we're not doing that." And so he ended up doing something which resembled laces and dipped in alcohol. When you lit the laces in the drink, it burned down and actually become a pretty good drink. And so they were like, "This is much more what we were after." But anyway, but he was on board at the time and just kind of helping us on a bit of a ad hoc basis. And he just went, "Well, why aren't we just doing like cucumber flavourings?" And John and I were like, "Why didn't you say that when we..." That was a real breakthrough moment. And so with the help of Chester University, we got these kind of cucumber natural flavourings, and then you could actually start to make the drinks properly that way. And so we were still doing it by hand. John initially would just start by going from bar to bar in Liverpool to sell them. But we made those drinks eventually, and we put on those. Danny and I would just be sitting on the cement floor of a safe store, just listening to podcasts, just putting on all the swing tops and stuff. And what our investors had always said was, well, see if you can sell 3,000. That we've taken a hit with the fact that you essentially were selling gunk.
Yeah. How was that process going back cap in hand again? Was it okay in terms of you had a good story, or a daunting experience?
Daunting, but also, to be fair, they were really. I think in my head, I thought that it'd be much worse than it was. I think that from their side as well, this is really early on. Like, none of you have said that you're drink specialists, and we certainly weren't. And
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like the idea is still good. Like, you guys clearly believe in this still, and
Hmm.
okay, we've lost the cost of a few hundred cucumbers, which is obviously not great. But again, this at least, if you're going to make mistakes, then just don't make the same mistakes twice. They were more than reasonable, to be honest with you. So then, John managed to sell the first 3,000 of them.
Nice. How did
Yeah,
that feel?
it was great actually, but it was a slightly double edged because we knew that we couldn't keep going to Chester every other week, and I think by that time too, like, they were amazing to us, but I think by that time too, they were just a bit like, oh, look, lads, like, you're meant to kind of.
You graduated.
Yeah, exactly. And then we wanted to do contract manufacturing, but you kind of need to use. There's a few different specialist companies where you'll go to them with an idea, and they will then turn, so like cucumber, mint, lemon, and lime, and then they will turn your idea into a recipe which is scalable, which one of the contract manufacturers can actually read on the recipe sheet. And so we went to them, and by that point too, we also wanted to do a second flavour to bring up with the first one, which was blood orange, raspberry, and ginger. And so we got help from them to actually develop those recipes, and then we started contract manufacturing doing that. And so our first contract manufacturing was in 200 ml bottles, because originally the plan was to be a mixer, because
Yeah.
the gin boom was there. No one was doing still mixers, and so that was the original plan. And also, just John could go from bar to bar, and it was over time, to be honest with you, that the feedback was, well, this is great, but this should really be a soft drink, which, and to steal a phrase from tech, it can be reverse compatible as a mixer, but
Yeah.
it would also be a soft drink which you could use as a mixer instead of just a mixer. But that took us a little while to get to as well.
Yeah, because I imagine that's pretty hard. Because like if you're starting up a thing with a certain focus in mind, you tend to be pretty focused on achieving that goal. We set out to be a mixing company. Like, how was that in terms of like a process of switching the tack, so to speak? Like, how long did it take you before you're like, actually, no, you're right. This is a bloody delicious drink in its own right. We're going for it.
So we did the bottle runs, and we managed to sell out of them, and then we really liked the idea of the cans, and so we did 200 ml cans, and it was at that point, to be honest, where we should have done the soft drink then. But these things always seem like really good, but it always seems much better in retrospect and with hindsight. But quite early on with the cans, we knew that we wanted to be a soft drink, just purely because with mixers, they can be fantastic, but if you want to kind of do it to scale, you probably need to be on a menu, to be honest with you. Just otherwise, if you're a brand new company and no one's heard of you, then no one's going to buy you. And then you need to speak to the right bar staff, and the bar world is one of those industries, obviously, where staff change quite a lot, and so there might be someone who loves it, and then someone else might come in and they obviously completely understandably want to put their own stamp on the operation. And so it was not that we're afraid of hard work, but it was a serious amount of hard work to not get that far. Whereas the idea of, say, being a standalone soft drink, bam, this looks good, let's take it. Like, the steps to purchase are just so much effective that way. And so we knew what we wanted to do, but then we had all of this 200 ml can stock, and then obviously COVID came, and it was like, and to get to do the 250 mils, we need to sell loads of can stock, and it was, and to be honest, if we didn't sell that can stock, then could have well been us done. Just, I think, going back to investors with that we messed up to begin with, and it turned out brown, but it was quite small scale, and which was is one of the best. It's so funny, and it's
Yeah.
but quite small scale. That's one thing. But going back to investors, we've got tens of thousands of these cans. They're not going to work. We really think 250 mils will work. Oof, that's a much harder
Yeah.
sell,
Yeah.
and especially when you've got COVID, you've got global financial uncertainty, you've got investors wanting to keep cash fluid, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So it was looking like, oh God, well let's yeah, and but we got so lucky because a certain wholesaler just somehow,
Took the lot.
yeah, they did, yeah, and so they,
Amazing. How
mm,
good? I would say that was a good day.
yeah, it was. I remember actually because it was just, and it'd been kind of simmering in the pipelines for a while, but then we needed a certain certificate in order for them to take us before COVID. But then the place where we'd done our 200 ml cans didn't have that certificate, and then because of COVID, they couldn't get someone to verify that what they actually had that certificate, and then
Oh,
so it was like, oh God, if we just missed this by like a month or two, they finally got that certificate, and then obviously with COVID, people aren't really taking on bulk stock normally, and so
mm,
and then it seemed like it was simmering, and then it seemed like it wouldn't happen, and then it seemed like it might, and then it seemed like it wouldn't, and then yeah, just got the call. Yeah, they've just taken everything. It was like, phew, we're still alive, chap.
glorious. And then at that moment, were you kind of like, okay, great, we've got this. Now let's really double down on the soft drink side.
Yeah, 100%. And so it was one I think where at that point, because that was in like September last year, and it's either, well, do we really? Because with the lip care stuff, it was fading out. I was like, well, I don't really believe in this anymore. Like, and
Mm,
you
mm.
wanted, you'd have to do a call center, which again is, yeah, just not what kind of wanted to do. And I was lucky to be in a position where I didn't have to do that. But with this, it was like, look, we know that this can work. We know we've got what we think's a good brand, which has kind of won a couple awards and stuff. And we know people like these drinks, but we need to just. And so it was either do you take the money at that point, or do you just reinvest everything into the 250 ml soft drinks? And but with them, as always, there's a problem, which was that you have to commit to buying 150,000
Yeah,
cans of each one. And so it's like, right, well, and so that was when, as it says with the podcast's name, that's when we really took the plunge. Like, look, let's go for this. Like, that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we really back us. Our investors somehow have the patience of saints, and they're still with us. Look,
Amazing.
let's just really, really, really go for this. And we've been so lucky because so they came out in October last year, the cans, and so since then on the on trade we got listings with Bid Food, Co, which is the University Caterers Association, which is linked to Bid Food, and LWC, and then from the off trade side of things, got listings with Sainsbury's, and also 40 WH Smiths in airports across Europe, which goes live next month, I think, which is and so
That's amazing. So which airports are you in the UK? I need to have a look out.
yeah, so they're actually in Europe, but Dublin is one of
Oh,
them.
Dublin. All right, I know the one in
Yeah,
Terminal 2.
that's the one indeed, and then it's
Yeah,
and then Schiphol Airport, which if someone, because I remember I went to Schiphol when I was like, well, Amsterdam when I was about 18, and then
yeah.
if someone say, if say when I was sitting at that airport, someone say 12 years in the future of me was saying, look, you and some mates are going to create a drink which is going to be sold in the WH Smiths here, I'd have at least put it in the
It's
top
pretty
20
cool.
surreal elements of that trip.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
But
yeah, I mean that's must be awesome. But I'm always fascinated about kind of when you're trying to land in like a WH Smith or a Sainsbury's. How is that experience in terms of selling into the buyers and getting the kind of the first yes to go into a sample set? What was that process like?
no, of course. So with Sainsbury's, there's a competition and it's called the Future Brands competition, and
Yep.
so it kind of does what it says on the tin. And then the judges are from Sainsbury's, Pepsi, Cantor, the research company, and a few others who are probably going to kill me for not knowing their names now. And so it was a bit about the product and a bit about where you want to go, because we really felt that, well, less people are drinking fizzy drinks now. People are moving away from single-use plastic. We think that there's a gap in the market for that. And I mean, you've got it, so it's just quite interesting in, say, the Middle East, you've got carbonation taxes. And the general trends are, I think, that people are not necessarily fully always wanting a drink with 7 of your 5 a day in, but healthier options to things. And so we did the pitch to them, and we actually came, we were the top ranked drinks company in the country who entered that award, which was
Nice.
really nice, yeah. And then we also, there's a sales agency, and they were also speaking to Sainsbury's at the same time. And so there's a bit of a pincer movement with us on that side and the sales agency on the other. So that's how we kind of got that one. And with WH Smiths, that was more our sales agency who did that. So
Nice.
I quite like having a really small and I think we're all quite big believers in like a small team with quite a lot of responsibility, and then we also have the help of a sales agency who are our extended family. Really, they're great, even though one of them's Italian and he's very happy about the football on the weekend, but that's
The bastard.
yeah, exactly. But, we won't hold that one
Uh,
again.
when you got the Sainsbury's listing, were you straight into the supermarket, making sure they looked all nice, buying a few of them, making sure the stock was ticking over?
Yeah, but it's kind of weird because they tell you in the February March time, but then you can't obviously you didn't really want to tell any friends or family. Just you look like a knob if you said you were in there, and then for some reason you weren't, and you just look like such an idiot, and
Yeah.
so I just had to wait for a little while, and then they went live in early June, and so once we got the order in, like started to tell people, and then yeah, it was really good fun actually. So we went to Camden, and we had a few pints, and then we went to the Sainsbury's there, just a bit like yeah, and it was, it was a really nice day. It was a really nice moment.
Oh,
It was
lovely.
yeah, it was quite surreal just to think it's a long way from a Bloody Mary, and it's also a really long way from the gunk juice at Chester.
Has to start somewhere. Has to start somewhere. And on the other side of it, from outside of kind of getting in enlisting in like Sainsbury's or in trade, there's obviously the online element. So when I bought through Amazon, and you've a pretty nice store within Amazon itself. How have you found selling online? And is it tough? Because Jesus, like everyone sells online, so there's lot of stuff to compete with. Or how have you found that side of the business?
Well, we didn't go near Amazon for a little while because number one, we knew that we wanted to be a soft drink, and didn't really want to do anything until we were at that point because you don't want to make it so messy that you start with something and then you'd have to untangle it all. And so we actually, again, I think with some stuff, like you need have the core people there, but with other stuff, then leave some stuff to experts. And for instance, none of us have experience with Amazon. None of us know how to sell on Amazon. So really, it's a more protracted process than I think we all thought that it would be. And so with that side, we lead it to a company, and they do stuff for like Edda's Kitchen, Lily's Kitchen, Cafe Nero, and so they're really nice and they're really good. And so we kind of left that to them, and we wanted to have it so that that was a bit of a blank slate for them as well to
Hmm.
use. And but they told me a couple of fascinating stats, and one which stuck with me was that people are now searching more for products on Amazon than they are on Google.
Wow, that is mind blowing.
Absolutely crazy, isn't it? And they want to overtake, and because I was actually with the Amazon guys yesterday, and they were saying about how the Amazon UK have kind of made it public that they actually want to overtake Tesco's in all grocery sales by middle of like 2025. It's kind of crazy.
Wild.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting now, just because obviously everyone in the pandemic was using Amazon or Sainsbury's online or Ocado, and it's going to
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
and I guess now, and because no one really knows, do they? But it'll be really interesting. Do people stay with that because of the
see how.
convenience? Yeah, or do people more go back to supermarkets? Is it a bit more of a hybrid version of
Yeah.
it? And so from our side, we use Amazon was just the main way to do it for us, just because even from a supply chain point of view, you get the stock, you give it to their depot, they then
Hmm.
send it out instead of say us having to take an order.
Yeah. It's a
Us,
nice little service they offer, isn't it?
yeah, it's really good, and even just with their analytical tools and with the people who help us with their kind of software which they use too. It's a fascinating space, and it's just really interesting where everything online goes as well. Because obviously, Ocado must have had well, their profits boomed as well, and then Sainsbury's have
Hmm.
online, and it was just yeah, it's interesting. So, long kind of slight cheat answer is that we use experts to help us sell there, and so it's not
But
quite as arduous as it could be.
But yeah, but I think that's really important. That's just like good management and good thinking because you're obviously growing quite a bit over the last couple of years, and you have decisions where you can add to the team, build hires, or you can go, I'm going to outsource different operations here to certain subject expertise, be it the agency that helped you landed WH Smith or the lads that know how to use Amazon. How have you kind of made those decisions in terms of as you've talked about loads of different people that have been key along the way, but how have you made the decision of who to bring in to kind of the central hub, so to speak, and where to outsource?
With export stuff, we've got a lot of help by the Department of International Trade, and they've been really, really helpful with us. And so they've helped with introductions, which have led to listings in the Middle East, in supermarkets there. And obviously, they have a clout which me turning up who needs a haircut certainly doesn't have. And so they're seriously useful for that side of things. But what even then, though, I think it's more one where the core of us, we know our product, we know what we want to do with it. We know that we'd like to think that it stands for being a bit, we'd like, and obviously everyone says this, but we'd like to think it stands for kind of almost Soho's values of like creativity, innovation. Let's be bold, let's do something slightly strange, and if everyone's doing carbonated, let's do none, and let's back ourselves and know that it might be divisive, but that's part of the fun of it. And so we kind of know that stuff, but at the same time, we know our limitations is, I guess, the best way of putting it. So none of us know how to say set up a store on Amazon, whereas these people do, and loads of really great reputable brands use them. Or with our sales agency, we don't have, say, the 10 years worth of, well, I think combined we've actually got a century's worth of experience with it's kind of crazy with just like different buyers and different people and just those relationships which you build. And we've got our kind of internal ones, but it's knowing what your strengths and limitations are with things as well, I think, and knowing that you can't take all of it on and you shouldn't take all of it on.
No.
And so we know that we might, for instance, know what direction the brands we want to take it in, but we also know, well, you need domain experts to really get you there as well.
Yeah, 100%. And the other area you kind of flick backward and forwards with is obviously the funding piece, and you're fortunate enough at the beginning to be able to get investors. As you kind of project kind of future growth for Soho Juice Co, are you looking to tap into the same kind of pool, or is it going to be organic growth, or what way are you looking at it from a kind of funding the future version of Soho Juice Co?
No, of course. And so, well, I think start with the pool that we have, and other people have kind of come into that pool. And then the idea of crowdfunding's always appealed as well. But with that, obviously, it takes up so much of your time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
the campaign bit of it is a big ask.
yeah, exactly. And so it's one where just even from I quite like the idea of, say, a lot of people having a little bit who are then invested in it, but and obviously, without being presumptuous on it, just I think we've done well enough so far to at least have I think that we'd have a compelling case for it, if nothing else. But it is just the time aspect, and so, and also we have a really good relationship with our investors who've kind of been along with this journey with us, and dragged along more. And I think they would have liked it a lot more plain sailing than it's been.
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. And were those guys kind of utilizing things like the SEIS scheme or the EIS scheme as part of their investments?
Exactly, yeah. So it started with SEIS and then it moved to EIS after that.
Yeah, yeah. So at least they're getting cash back in their pocket along the way. It's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, exactly. Not all, anyway.
Yeah, I know, but it just shows that it is such a fantastic scheme for kind of early stage businesses that have good ideas that just need to get that seed capital to show the kind of early shoots. So it's great to see it kind of in action and bearing fruit, so to speak.
Oh no, it's an amazing scheme. It's because I don't think that we'd really have got off the ground without it. There must be countless others. It's just such a good incentive for people to actually back startups.
Yeah, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then I suppose then just looking then for you guys, you're now getting into trade, you're understanding the online piece, you've got a couple of kind of flavors out in the market. Where do you kind of go next in terms of where you want to take Soho Juice Co?
We want to get into some of the restaurant chains when they reopen a bit more, and I think that as an alternative option, and I think there's people have almost got slightly bored, I think anyway, of just buying the same stuff during the last year, and something a little bit different while they're allowed to hopefully go out again. And so we'd like to see a few restaurant chains, and then maybe one or two more supermarkets in the UK, and then the other area which we're really interested in is actually the Middle East, just because, and this is much more by luck than anything else, but because there is that 50% carbonation tax, and so that means that a lot of our
Perfect opportunity.
yeah, exactly. And I think that with those kind of things, if you've got an opportunity like that there, which no one planned for, but if it's there, then it makes sense to kind of be quite as to really go for
Mm,
those kind of ones too, just because people obviously don't necessarily drink alcohol unless it's in the hotels. You've got a carbonation tax. People are favourable on kind of British branding and British products, and you do have kind of growing classes, and so I think that that's another from an export point of view. That's where we'd really like to look
mm.
at too, just because it could be. Yeah, I think as you said, I think there's a really interesting opportunity there, and it just seems like for those kind of things when they are there, then you've got to really go for them.
And then I suppose just finally from my side, like kind of looking back, aside from knowing that cucumbers produce brown juice, what has been kind of the highlight so far over the last kind of couple of years?
To be honest with you, I know it sounds slightly cliche, but it's just when I was in my teens, I'd work in supermarkets stacking shelves, and I mean John was selling cars, well, leasing out cars to people, and Steve was working in trail finders, and Danny was trying to raise do like on the phone for charities, and so I think that just the fact that this is something which is so important to us, but also really fun, and it's unpredictable, and you can have unbelievable days and the odd day, but it's just I think to be honest, it's more of a general kind of the whole process of it is, and the whole journey
Yeah,
of it is the highlight, and because it's strange because with Save the Sainsbury's one, it's an amazing feeling, and let's have a few beers and celebrate this, and then it's on to the next one, and so it's more
yeah,
instead of one finite point, it's more just the whole process of it actually, which is just
yeah,
it doesn't. I know it sounds silly, but it doesn't feel like work compared to doing jobs which say you're not that emotionally invested in, or you're not kind of really
yeah.
that passionate about. And I think that for us is probably the biggest highlight so far.
Exactly. Yeah, it's proper roller coaster ship, but it's a very enjoyable enjoyable ride. But thanks so much, Johnny, for coming on and chatting. I've really enjoyed it. I've laughed a lot, and you and the guys have obviously done an amazing job on first and foremost just creating a brilliant, tasty product. I can definitely verify it for my one can, but I will be getting more, and kind of hiding them outside of greedy hands in my house. But thanks, honestly, pleasure chatting to you, and wishing you all the best with it. I'm gonna keep a keen eye on Sainsbury's and Terminal 2 in Dublin next time I'm home too.
No, fantastic, and I know you're busy, and thanks a million for inviting me on as well.